regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Titusville is called to order this time. Let's please stand and pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have the roll call, please.
Chairman Severs.
Present.
Vice Chairman Spidell.
Present.
Secretary Richardson.
Present.
Member Grant.
Present.
Member Rice. Member Aton. Member Porter.
Here.
Alternate Member Riley.
Here.
Alternate Member Childs.
Here.
We certainly have a quorum and appreciate, again, the alternate members serving. Unfortunately, two of our regular members are not here tonight. The first item of business, Chelsea, could you read the notice applicable to participation?
All persons who anticipate speaking on any public hearing item must fill out an oath card to be heard on that agenda item and sign the oath contained thereon. These cards are located on the table near the entrance to the council chamber or may be obtained from the recording secretary. This meeting will be conducted in accordance to the procedure adopted in Resolution Number 24-1997. Those speaking in favor of a request will be heard first, those opposed will be heard second, and those who wish to make a public comment on the item will speak third. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. A representative from either side, for or against, may cross-examine a witness. Anyone who speaks is considered a witness. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents that you desire for the commission to consider, they must be submitted into evidence and will be retained by the city. Please submit such exhibits to the recording secretary.
Thank you. The next item is approval of the June 16th special and regular meeting minutes. Do we have any comment, suggestion, or motion? Yes, sir. Member Riley.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Member Grant.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend we approve the minutes from the special meeting and the regular meeting.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. Roll call, please.
Member Riley.
Yes.
Member Childs.
Yes.
Member Grant.
Yes.
Member Porter.
Yes.
Secretary Richardson.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell.
Yes.
Chairman Severs.
Yes. The next item listed is quasi-judicial confirmation procedures. We do have a few items on our agenda which are legislative in nature and some of which are quasi-judicial in nature. And our procedures are as follows. Certain items under old and new business may be public hearing items. Individuals desiring to speak on those items must fill out an oath card. Those cards are located near the entrance to the council chamber or can be obtained from the recording secretary. Some items which will be identified by the chairman are quasi-judicial. Let me just indicate on our agenda the item that are quasi-judicial are item B, dealing with Cape Ron Road, item C, the CUP 1450 Harrison Street, and also the last item, Kennedy Point Marina, CUP number 1-2021. Those desiring to speak in favor will speak first, and those opposed will speak second, and those with a public comment third. The applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. Witnesses may be cross-examined by the applicant. Commission members, staff, or other representative is authorized by the commission. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents you desire for the commission to consider, they must be presented in evidence, and please provide to the recording secretary. Recording secretary have all persons wishing to speak signed an oath card. If not, anyone desiring to speak must submit one certainly before the item is called. Has any commission members visited the site or spoken to any member of the public regarding a quasi-judicial item? Not hearing anyone. In the event a member has received an ex parte communication, the identity of the person with whom the communication took place and the subject of the communication must be disclosed, including opinions, facts discussed. Any written communication must be a part of the record. Site visits must be disclosed. With regard to the agenda, the first section of the agenda is old business. Item A, strategic planning activity. I would respectfully suggest that be tabled to the next meeting in light of our agenda. Could we have a motion to that effect?
I move we delay that for the next agenda. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. It passes. The next item under old business is low impact development LID. We completed our review of that item at our special meeting. Do we have a motion to ratify and reaffirm and confirm the actions taken at our special meeting, which commenced at 5 p.m. on that item?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Member Richardson. Any discussion? Since it's an ordinance, I'll call for a roll call then.
Member Grant,
Yes.
Member Riley,
Yes.
Secretary Richardson,
Yes.
Member Childs,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell,
Yes.
Member Porter,
Yes.
Chairman Severs.
Yes. Before moving to new business, I received a number of requests. I think staff has received a number of requests that the tree ordinance be heard at this time rather than under reports. I did look back at the minutes. The minutes indicate Chairman Severs said they will resume the discussion from the 5 o'clock meeting. Chairman Severs said his goal tonight is to completely review the tree ordinance and provide all the recommendations to staff, and then the staff to draft the tree ordinance, include all of the recommendation in draft form to review at the July 7th meeting. When I received the agenda, I inquired why wasn't this under old business, since it's a follow-up to our last meeting. I respectfully suggest that we move that up because it's just a continuation, follow-up, and it is old business. And I see that staff has a number of inputs or recommendations or clarifications they feel as though need to be made on the ordinance. So do we have a motion? Member Spidell, your light's on.
Sorry.
Member Grant, your light's on. Member Riley.
I move that we move up the tree ordinance discussion to first on the new business.
Okay. Do we have a second? Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. It passes. So at this time, we will consider the tree ordinance. Traditionally, the City Council and all their allow public input. We've allowed public input on this item many times. But if someone wants to provide public input, we will give 3 minutes to do so. Do we have any cards?
There's 4 cards.
4 cards, okay.
Laura Lee Thompson,
Laura Lee Thompson, 3550 Irwin Avenue, Mims. First of all, I want to thank you for approving the LID ordinance. The TEC worked really hard on it. We appreciate that. And I'm very happy with the additions that were made to it. In light of what's happened to the lagoon and the starving manatees, it's so obvious that something has to be done to help the lagoon, and so the LID ordinance is critical. But so is the tree protection ordinance, because new development is a lot of the problem of what's wrong with the lagoon. So we've got stormwater, but then we also have the impacts of new development. The tree protection ordinance will help make our new development better. Hopefully you'll go along with the 25% canopy requirement and put it in tree protection areas so that it can be protected, for all time, so that they can't come in and take the trees out later. Also, heritage trees. Make sure that there is protection for heritage trees if they're not inside the tree protection area, so that homeowners can't come along and take out heritage trees at a later date. Those would be my 2 comments. Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Not seeing any. Next card.
Tony Schifolo.
Tony Schifolo, 715 Tropic Street. The botanists and biologists, geologists, and rocket scientists on the tree team can talk to you about the scientific benefits of trees in their natural environment. There have been many articles lately around the nation about the dollar value of trees to communities, neighborhoods, and cities. I want to draw attention to the June 30th New York Times about rich people desiring to purchase in areas with 60% canopy. I'm speaking about the need to include post-development protection of heritage trees. I'm an archivist by profession. An archivist is an information specialist who assesses, collects, organizes, and preserves. The work of an archivist serves to strengthen collective memory. Trees are nature's archivists. They take a long time to grow, and they contain many years of history, creation, and evolution, and weather. The University of Florida did a study of the growth rate of our state tree, the sable palm. Surprisingly, they found it took 10 to 15 years from seed to the first sign of a trunk at ground level, then about 6 inches of growth per year, so a sable palm 20 feet tall is at least 50 years old. Consider the size of heritage trees in the ordinances you've been studying. Around here, those are mainly white oak and pine varieties. Using the standard growth formula developed by the International Society of Arboriculture, at 33 inches DBH, as recommended by P&Z, a typical Florida oak is 165 years old. A pine is about the same, 165 years. At 46 inches, which staff wants to make a heritage tree, it's 230 years. That means it was an acorn around the year 1791. Even at staff's version of a significant tree at 14 inches DBH, the oak is already 70 years old. That's a lot of history, banded together, communicating through root systems and fungal networks, as we now have learned that trees do, especially heritage trees. They strengthen collective memory. Come on now. You remember the fun trees of our youth, the citrus trees we borrowed fruit from, the hanging branch, droopy oak trees we climbed in, the romantic palm trees in the moonlight we smooched under. Therefore, the tree team recommends, and I wholeheartedly endorse as an archivist, activist, and citizen, that you incorporate the following in Section 4. All healthy heritage trees to be preserved shall be incorporated into tree protection areas. Don't limit it to just the ones that the TEC does not approve for removal, as they said, but recommend that all heritage trees be in protection areas, giving them post-development protection. And that's an incentive for developers, too, because it counts as their canopy. Thank you.
Next card.
Kay St. Ange.
Yes, Kay St. Ange, Maryland Avenue. Thank you for your diligence in working on the tree protection ordinance. In her July 1st email, Peggy Basaka indicated that clarification is needed to ensure that the ordinance adequately reflects the intent of the commission. At the May 5 P&Z meeting, Commissioner Porter recommended 25%, not 20% area of canopy, and a motion was made to approve the Sierra Club recommendation, which passed unanimously. I ask that the P&Z clarify this percentage and the P&Z version be revised on page 261 to reflect 25% canopy. I believe an error has been made in section 324A1, page 270. I think it was just a typo. Staff forgot to change. This should read, all residential developments or lots more than 1 acre shall preserve an area equal to or at least 25% of the total lot or development area. But instead, in error, it says 15%. That needs to be corrected. On page 261, section 3031.5F, it says preserved canopy should be placed in protected tracts or easements when possible. Eliminate the words when possible, which has no legal definition. Preserved canopy should be placed in protected tracts or easements, period. The P&Z version provides little protection post-development for those trees preserved during development. P&Z version has no provision requiring heritage trees be in tree protection areas with legal protection language post-development. Please add a provision to indicate all healthy heritage trees to be preserved shall be incorporated in tree protection areas with legal protective language on the site plan and in residential developments also on the HOA document on both. Add the words tree protection area acreage to change the provision on page 261. A minimum of 60% of tree protection acreage is required to be located in the interior of the property and outside of the required buffer. Please make these changes to the P&Z version. And once again, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. Next card.
Mary Spar.
Mary Spar, 825 Clifton's Cove Court, Cocoa, and I'm speaking for Sierra Club tonight. I'm going to ask a favor, and it's that you just look at the first page right now with the chart. The other paperwork is only in case there's a miracle and you decide to change your minds about the canopy section you passed. I didn't send this chart and markup to you because you've got way too much on your plate. Way too much, and it's overwhelming. So I didn't think I'd add to the 309-page agenda you have. I've been at all your meetings about the tree ordinance, and it really seemed like you wanted to preserve trees in protected areas. And that's a tree tract vision of the TEC version. And the same vision for preserving trees in tree protection area is the heart of the compromise version and also the Sierra Club recommendation. In contrast, staff's second version is short on detail in the canopy section, way too short on detail. It leaves a lot to the imagination, and like staff's version, unfortunately, the canopy section you passed The canopy section you passed provides golden opportunities to those who want their canopy outside of tree protection area. So let's take a look at this chart. This is P&Z canopy section, major issues and solutions. And the first issue is quoting from your canopy section, preserved canopy should be placed in protected tracts or easements when possible. And that contrasts sharply with the TEC vision, compromise vision, and the Sierra Club recommendation. So I've got some language to fix it. And it's in here. You should delete that sentence. And I'm suggesting adding a sentence to A. Second, your column titles on the chart are not worded in terms of tree protection areas, and they need to be, because what happens when you don't do that, you just say canopy, then compliance with canopy requirement means 100% coverage for all counted canopy, with no reasonable allowance for any spaces in between the trees. And we are recommending the 80%, not the 100%, you know, counting. Next, you've got in your canopy version that trees and easements on residential lots can count toward canopies. I would like 2 more minutes, please.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Okay.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying yes. Yes. Those opposed, no. Go ahead. 2 more
Okay.
minutes.
Anyway, so trees and easements on residential lots can count toward canopy, but homeowners can find excuses to cut these down? No. Get the right language there. And the last one is there's no limit on the amount of forested wetlands that can be counted toward canopy. And theoretically, you could have no upland canopy to satisfy the canopy requirements. This is not the way the TEC ordinance or the compromise ordinance worked. TEC doesn't allow any wetland impact, and compromise allows 50%. Okay, if I can take the rest of my 2 minutes to point out, on here, on the first page of the write-up, there's some titles on this chart, and they need to be there. And everything in A needs to be there. All of it. And I put the exemptions also, as suggested in a letter to you previously, this kind of a format for them, and it's your exemptions you passed. Second page, and all this does is clean up your language to get this in terms of tree protection area and to get the legal language correct. So I hope that you'll consider substituting this for yours. So my granddaughter Elizabeth wished me good luck today on the tree project. I told her we'd need a miracle. But you can get the canopy section right. And if you do, you will provide a very helpful recommendation to council and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you. Okay, we've had the public input. I did meet with staff at the Assistant City Attorney's suggestion, which I thought was excellent, to try to go over the staff ordinance and determine whether or not it encapsulated, included all the things we'd agreed upon, and I think we found a couple of mistakes. And in addition, I was provided, and I don't know whether staff has it, staff's request for clarification. We have basically a 2-page sheet here asking for clarification. And I don't know how to go through this other than to start from the beginning and walk our way through it. Because I think it's important, 1, to clarify some things, and number 2, make sure we address the issues that we felt or feel as though should be addressed. So, and I'm going to be referring to the staff document and I printed it out as I have it. That's page 1 of 17. I don't know how you all printed it out, but that's the way I have it. They did add the one whereas clause, which is accurate and reflective of what we agreed upon on the second page, which starts with sections 30-31 and various definitions.
Mr. Chairman, the staff request for clarification document is the last 2 pages of the agenda packet.
Okay. And the page 2, do you see any, staff have any clarifications they want, or commission have any? I see on page 261, where staff is asking for 2 clarifications. Reference under mature canopy is Appendix A, which if we're going to utilize Appendix A, it should be formally adopted, and words to that effect should be included at some place in the document as such. Did staff have any recommendation where to add that? And also, you had a clarification whether we were incorporating just Brevard County and all the references, et cetera.
I believe in the county code, the Appendix A is as an appendix, comes at the end of the ordinance, and so I would just say, understanding that your intent is to include it, we could find the most appropriate spot, but most likely would be as an appendix towards the end.
Okay. So then your suggestion is we have language here under 30-31, Appendix A attached here to and made a part hereof is incorporated by reference. Is that wording to that effect? I defer to the city attorney's office, but I mean, I really defer to you where you think it should be incorporated. But I agree that if we're going to refer to Appendix A, we need to adopt it.
I think that this body could make a motion to include the text in the body of Appendix A and allow the planners to determine where it shall be placed and add the incorporating language. If that's your direction, we just haven't heard that as a motion yet.
Okay, do we have a motion to that effect? Member Spidell?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those, roll call.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. The next suggestion for clarification by staff is there at number 4 at the bottom, planted canopy planted drip line, and it said, is that correct? That correction appears to me to be correct, and it should be corrected accordingly.
As I read the definition for a planted canopy, it says basically that this definition, the outer edge of this, is referred to as the planted drip line. The planted drip line is later acknowledged in the document, and I wanted to confirm that that was the intent that you all wanted.
Does anyone have any, Member Spidell, your light's on, Member Riley? Anyone have any comments, suggestion? Member Childs?
I think I do remember the conversation being that we were, I think Member Rice was talking about the drip line and wanting it to refer to it as a drip line instead of a canopy, but that's what I recall.
Do we have a motion or clarification as suggested by staff?
I'll make a motion to change the wording from planted canopy to planted drip line.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Spidell.
Yes.
Secretary Richardson.
Yes.
Member Porter.
Yes.
Member Riley.
Yes.
Member Childs.
Yes.
Member Grant.
Yes.
Chairman Severs.
Yes. The next clarification you've asked for is on page 3, under native vegetation. It refers to the Atlas of Florida vascular plants maintained by and the latest edition of Appendix A. You indicate that there are some differences between those documents. Unfortunately, Mr. Rice isn't here who made that suggestion.
Well,
You
it's
have
just-
a suggestion.
It's just challenging from an implementation standpoint of trying to use two different sources in case they conflict. How do we know which source material to refer to over another? So we would recommend choosing one. I don't know if the commission has a preference for one over the other.
Well, since we've already adopted Appendix A as recommended, I would respectfully suggest we just have one, and that would be Appendix A, which we're already utilizing.
In the alternative, you could change the word "and" to "or" if something's not included in Appendix A.
Is that all right with staff?
Sure.
Do we have a motion by the commission? Hate to be so formal, but trying to move things along. This is on page 3, subsection 7, under native vegetation.
Okay, under Article and, A and D, the latest edition should be changed to the word and/or the latest edition.
Okay, that's the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Riley.
Yes.
Member Childs.
Yes.
Member Grant.
Yes.
Member Porter.
Yes.
Secretary Richardson.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell.
Yes.
Chairman Severs.
Yes. Turning to the next page, page 4. I indicated it's clear from the May 5th minutes that the 32 inches was changed to 33 inches. And I have the May 5th minutes here. That is clear. So I think
I agree.
Could we get a motion confirming that change then, just to be sure that change is being made?
Member Grant, would you like to make that motion confirming it? It's 33. Or excuse me, Member Porter.
I move that the 32 inches be changed to 33 inches for specimen and heritage trees.
And I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Member Riley.
Yes.
Secretary Richardson.
Yes.
Member Porter.
Yes.
Member Childs.
Yes.
Member Grant.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell.
Yes.
Chairman Severs.
Yes. Okay, the next area I see where staff had some concerns is on, again, page 4 under subsection I and I2. I guess the question, please confirm the language in I2 is correct. And the second suggestion staff has is to change the word paved to impervious area. And the additional suggestion by staff is changing the last word, no impervious surface shall be permitted within the drip line. Do we have a motion, comment? I mean, as I recall the language, and I've checked, by a 6-1 vote, that was approved, according to the minutes. Would you like to clarify the language as recommended by staff? Member Grant?
I was going to make a motion to confirm that the language is correct and approve the changes that staff wants.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Member Porter? We have a second? Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Chairman?
Yes.
Real quick, I would just ask the commission to expand on the last comment for the drip line. We still don't fully understand whether that's at existing, planted, or mature drip line. So is that for, we just need to better understand what was the intention there.
Does the maker of the motion have a clarification? Or Member Spidell, your lights on?
A question to staff, can it meet all trees within the category? Or does it have to stipulate which trees?
I would recommend that since the change was made for the definition to have a definition for planted drip line, that's probably what you intended.
So you have to stipulate the tree, which category of tree?
Well, there's a definition now for planted drip line in your version of the ordinance.
Okay, well, can you go back to Appendix A where you can stick that stuff? Or do you have to define drip line again?
The way that I read this, it's for any of the protected trees. So the question is, if impervious surfaces are going to be allowed within the CRZ or the ICRZ, is it going to be limited to where no impervious surface will be permitted within the drip line expected at maturity, or planted as was defined earlier,
Or existing prior to development.
or existing prior to development?
So it needs to be stipulated, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Again, these comments are for clarification. You don't have to make any changes, but if you want to enhance your version of the ordinance in any way, these are things that caught our eye for room for improvement.
Question for staff then. Can you say no impervious surfaces should be permitted within the drip line of all tree categories and maturity, and stages of maturities? Can that be, or is that too comprehensive?
Did you say at all stages of maturity?
Uh-huh.
What exactly does that mean? I understand maturity to mean at its largest extent.
Right.
So if there's different stages of maturity, what does that mean?
I guess at maximum maturity, but I think that was the question that we had at the last meeting. What was it, that all species matured at a different rate? I
That's
thought
true.
that's what we came to the conclusion.
It seems to me that this impervious surface issue arises at the existing tree at that time. It doesn't talk about 75% or Exhibit A. It's as it exists today. So the context, I think this is at the existing drip line. That's, and I think, Member Grant, you made the motion?
Yes, and I agree with you.
Okay, so his
I agree
motion
with
is existing drip line. The second hold?
Yes.
Okay. So roll call?
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. Okay, turning to page 4. If any member of the commission has clarification to other items other than what staff has suggested, certainly as we're going through this, feel free to bring it up. Under, pardon? Okay. I'm at 30-31.5 canopy requirement, and I reviewed the May 5th minutes. Also, we were fortunate to have a transcript of that prepared for us. And there was a lot of discussion as to whether subsection A, as recommended by the Sierra Club, was to be included. My review, and I provided staff with that, and I had prepared it that way. I tried to keep a log of what the current changes were as we went through it. And that Exhibit A is current in the ordinance, is not as reflected in our motion we made at that time. I can hand down, as soon as I find it, the secondary issue also under A is whether or not it was residential 30 and whether or not it was 25 or 20% lowest. It's clear from the minutes as well as the discussion that our agreement was 25% based upon the minutes. Are you asking us to just reconfirm that, or what action? I don't think as drafted it reflects our actions as reflected in the minutes.
Sure. So we'll definitely want to get it right for whatever was in the minutes. The first comment is about the word preferred and lowest acceptable. Those are not terms that are helpful. So once we decide whether that was 25 or 20%, we'll make that the minimum requirement.
Well, like I said, there was a lot of discussion about it, but it's clear. I think all members agreed it was 25%. That's reflected in the minutes.
And again, that's for the preserved canopy minimum for residential?
Yes.
Okay.
Regarding the paragraph A, the vote was 5-2 to adopt the Sierra Club paragraph in its entirety.
Mr. Chair.
And that's the copy I gave to you. Yes, Member Riley.
Yes, in fact, I made that motion to include the entire block. I think Mr. Porter qualified that as 25% on the residential on the third column. And also, I see that the staff did not include the wording from the block that said total tree protection area as percentage of area of alteration. And instead, they put total canopy. And I think the way the Sierra Club had stated that it was more clear. And in the same way, on the third column at the top, instead of preserved canopy minimum, the Sierra Club block said tree protection area consisting of preserved trees as percentage of area of alteration. So I would like to make a motion that we clean that up with those changes to conform to the Sierra Club box that we had voted on.
Do we have a second to the motion?
Second. Those were my notes also.
In discussion on the motion, Member Richardson, your light's on? No? Okay.
Member
Roll call.
Riley?
Yes.
Member Riley, could I ask where that language is on the existing, on page 261 of the agenda? The current language that staff had what we thought had included your thoughts. Where was the language that was not correct? Was that subscript 1 under the table?
Say again.
Where's that language that's incorrect? Is it subscript 1 under the table or subsection A?
It's actually the heading,
Okay.
the heading,
Oh, the heading. Got it.
heading.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't think we've had a roll call, have we? We have a motion? Roll call, please.
Secretary Richardson,
Yes.
Member Porter,
Yes.
Member Riley,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel, Member Childs,
Yes.
Member Grant,
Yes.
Chairman Severs.
Yes. In addition, as I indicated, I have a copy here of it, but I gave council a copy of it as far as a canopy requirement. There was discussion under canopy requirement percentage, a longer paragraph A. There was some discussion about any trees planted to address a shortfall of the preserved canopy shall not receive mitigation credit. According to my recollection of the minutes, there was consensus on A. In addition, the transcript says, I'm looking at the Sierra Club's recommendation. We looked at the chart, and we seem to have consensus on A. That was their A. And then going down to B, turning to C, et cetera. So we did have consensus on A, so it needs to be in there. If you would like a motion to confirm that, we can do that. But that was the motion and the consensus in the transcript as such.
Sorry about that, but yes, a motion would be helpful.
Okay. Do we have a motion to that effect? Do we have a second? Member Richardson, second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Secretary Richardson,
Yes.
Member Childs,
Yes.
Member Grant,
Yes.
Member Riley,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel, Member Porter,
Yes.
Chairman Severs.
Yes. Going on further down, the tree protection area requirement,
Chairman, before we get to that,
Okay.
I think there was one more. FC 10 on that page asks who is authorized to make that determination.
since I'm the one who made that recommendation, it would be the applicant or developer.
Okay.
Okay? Certainly, if they're redeveloping property, they should have a right to reduce it by 50%. Okay? Going farther down to, again on page 5, tree protection area requirement, dealing with loss of, staff had a question on that. Does this mean that one tree is sufficient regardless of the amount of the canopy that is lost? And I just think that perhaps it should be clarified saying loss of canopy within tree protection area to a level below the required preserved canopy requirements shall require replacement. Strike the word tree. If it takes one tree or 10 trees, they have to replace what was lost. Obviously, acts of God are exempted, but do you want a motion to that effect? We can.
If there's consensus.
We have consensus just striking the word tree.
Yes.
Anyone have a problem? Okay. The next section, 3, just below that, the applicant may install planted canopy within a tree protection area. Planted canopy must not be planted within the CRZ of preserved canopy. And I think you've supplied what you thought the missing words are. Is that correct? So do we have a motion to confirm the suggestions made by staff?
So moved.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor, roll call.
Vice Chairman Spidell. Secretary Richardson.
Yes.
Member Porter.
Yes.
Member Riley.
Yes.
Member Childs.
Yes.
Member Grant.
Yes.
Chairman Severs.
Yes. And turning to the next page, 6. Yes, Member Randall.
Yes, I had another issue on that page under E. It says a minimum of 60% of the canopy is required to be located in the interior of the property. Shouldn't we delete of the canopy there and instead put in the words of the tree protection area acreage?
Correct.
So
I agree.
I make a motion that we make that change.
Do you have a second?
Can you repeat that?
Yes, could you repeat the motion, please?
Yes. In E, delete the words after 60%, delete of the canopy, and instead write in there of tree protection area acreage. So that would be a minimum of 60% of the tree protection area acreage.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Roll call.
Member Riley.
Yes?
Member Childs.
Yes.
Member Grant.
Yes.
Member Porter.
Yes.
Secretary Richardson.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell. Chairman Severs.
Yes.
So under E, there's no comment here for this one, but I understand what the commission's intent is with having the percentage for canopy placement, but I am not confident that the proposed language accomplishes your goal. The required buffer, if you will, imagine a rectangle with a perimeter being the required buffer, the exterior perimeter. If the required buffer of a development is, say, 20 or 30 feet width around the exterior, and your language is interpreted to say outside of that 30-foot buffer, the developer could interpret that to expand the required buffer up to 50 feet, and it would be outside of the required buffer, not accomplishing your goal. That's how I read this paragraph. And I know what you wanted, but I don't think that this paragraph does that.
You have a suggestion?
A language, I think that there needs to be something that says the tree protection areas shall be centralized or something other than outside of the buffer, because the buffer has a definition that is just that perimeter. It's not necessarily what you think it is in your mind of what, buffer being the perimeter. This language doesn't say that the canopy can't be adjacent to that required buffer.
I mean, you're absolutely correct, but the current problem is it appears as if in certain instances people are putting the canopy or the 10% requirement in the buffer period. And so I think there was concern to get away from that, to allow them to be ideally scattered in tree tracks around the development.
Perhaps where you could say where the development is over 10 acres, then there shall be a centralized canopy somewhere in the central area of the development. Maybe something like that would accomplish that goal, but I don't think that the way it's written does what you want it to.
The problem with doing that is that the trees you want to save may not be centralized. They may be in one area or another, not in the location you want them to be. Does any member of the commission have a suggestion?
Scattered, a minimum 60% of the canopy is required to be scattered throughout the property, the said property?
You could perhaps say it's not the buffer, shall be something other than the buffer,
Okay.
or
Over
shall
and
be
above the
separate and
buffer?
apart from the required buffer.
Separate and apart might be good language. Can you use the word scattered?
I would recommend not using the word scatter just because it's a very subjective term and it would be hard to
Yeah.
implement.
Okay. Spread? Allocated?
Maybe add to the language where it says outside of the required buffer or any additional buffer,
I
in
think
case they're provided, if the required buffer is 30 feet and they decide to provide a 50-foot buffer in order to capture a larger area. Is that what I'm understanding the issue is?
well, I think the attorney wants to get rid of that outside, and she's got a good point there.
What if we remove that?
Period?
What if we removed the words, well, after property, what if we remove those last few words? Will that cause more confusion or simplify things?
I think we're already pretty confused here. Okay.
Okay, well, that's a suggestion.
I think that that suggestion leads to your intent better than what is currently drafted.
Just trying to move on.
Okay.
Whoops.
Member Riley?
I would agree with what Member Grant just said, to remove the words "and outside of the required buffer."
Is there a reason why you can't use the word "and" throughout the required acreage?
Throughout the area of alteration.
Yeah, how about that?
I mean, we have a definition of area of alteration.
I don't know.
Again, the word throughout, dispersed, spread, all of those are, to what
Scattered.
extent is it something dispersed or spread or any of those terms? It can be hard to know exactly how they're meeting the intent.
I mean, I agree with you, but somehow we have to be practical in the sense that trees may not necessarily be scattered throughout, and we're trying to make sure they're protected. Why don't we move on? But I
So,
understand your suggestion
As
and
Member Riley,
appreciate that.
Member Riley made the suggestion that we change some of the language. So the sentence says, with the two members' suggestions, would read a minimum of 60% of the required tree protection area, which is a separate tree tract, is required to be located in the interior of the property. I think that sentence conveys your intent better than what it currently has drafted.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that we accept what council has just stated.
We have a second. Although, roll call.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell?
Yes.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. Going back up for a moment, one of my suggestions, we came up with a definition of area of alteration and we don't use it. I would suggest in section 30-31.5A above, on the same page, where it says all subdivisions and site plans shall provide an area of tree canopy area within the area of alteration through the creation and maintenance. So just inserting within the area of alteration, because we need to apply it somewhere in this ordinance if we're going to have a definition for it. Member
Motion?
Grant?
Was that a motion?
Yes. Oh, well.
Well, so moved.
So moved. Do we have a second? All those in favor, or let's roll call.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel? Member Porter? Chairman Severs?
Yes. Turning to page 6, staff asked the question, I think it's a legitimate question, under 4, it's the top of the page. Placement of tree protection areas within the interior of the development is encouraged. I'm not sure we need that in light of just the other paragraph we just discussed. Do we have consensus to remove subsection 4? Yes? So we have a consensus to do that. Moving on down, then inquire under G4, protection areas containing preserved trees may be forested wetland provided that wetlands are free of invasive species such as Brazilian peppers. And I want to comment upon section 4 and 5. This provision leads to, if you're allowing the interior tree canopy within the area of alteration to be the wetlands, then we have accomplished nothing by this exercise on trying to preserve trees. An example, in other words, if you have a 40-acre tract, 10 acres of which is wetlands, 30 acres of which is uplands, and let's say you're putting 100 houses, that's only really like around 3 units per acre, 100 houses on the 30 acres. You're required to have 30% preserved area for tree canopy. 30% times 30 acres, that's 9 acres. And they say, oh, I have 10 acres of wetlands over here. Therefore, I do not have to have any tree canopy whatsoever within the area of alteration. The staff's version of this did not have this language in here. The TEC did not have this in here. I'm not sure everybody, when we were considering it, realizes the consequences of passing this. But we accomplished nothing if we're saying you can have 100% of your canopy in the wetlands. In addition, we'll later get to it, there was an amendment to the motion that you can get your mitigation credit. Staff recommended 50%. TEC recommended 0. Mr. Kern, in his draft that he gave to us, which I have a copy of, recommended 50%. And by a 4-3 vote, this commission voted to say you can have 100% of your mitigation in the wetlands. So someone could easily have no canopy, remove all the trees from the 30 acres, not have to pay one dime towards mitigation costs. And we accomplished nothing as it relates to that property in preserving trees. That's what these two sections of the code that we're now entering into provide. I voted against, and I was the only one that voted against G, subsection G. So I can't make a motion to reconsider that, but I would respectfully suggest that the other members of the commission make a motion to reconsider G here and at a minimum change it to 50% rather than 100% credit towards tree canopy. I just don't feel as though everyone realized, and the hours getting late and it was dragging out, what happened. So I would just ask that the commission consider that as it relates to G3 and 4. Member Riley.
Oh, I misunderstood you. You weren't talking about section 5 at all?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. 3 and 4. It says under G3, tree protection areas may be located in code required buffers, wetlands, wetland buffers, and preservation areas. The TEC recommendation was in the buffers and wetland buffers, not in the wetlands. The City of Tampa's ordinance, which is kind of the guide on this, they don't allow wetlands to be counted towards mitigation and or your canopy. And part of my concern is most of the development we have left here in Titusville will involve wetlands. And if you want to preserve canopy, how are you going to do that if you're going to allow wetlands? Wetlands are already, generally speaking, protected. I thought the purpose of this exercise is to protect the canopy. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
I'd like to move to reconsider section G.
you cannot.
I can?
I would like to make a motion that we
Member Richardson
reconsider
can. You weren't voting.
Oh, okay.
It has to be someone who voted in favor.
section G, 3, and 4.
Do we have a second? Anybody can second.
Second.
And again, my real preference is not to allow any wetlands count, but if you're going to do that, then don't do any more than 50%. So let's have a roll call on whether to reconsider.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. So the motion is back on the floor to approve this subsection G. If you disagree with it, then you should deny, vote against approval of G 3 and 4.
So
So
moved.
roll call, again, the motion, we're now reconsidering the motion. The motion was to approve G. And you, if you want to deny it, then you should vote no. If you want to vote in favor of keeping the language as it is, you would vote yes. Is that correct, counsel?
Yes, I just wanted to point out that the handout from Mary Spar, bottom right corner, is addressing 4.
Is that today?
Yes.
page number, please?
Well, that's fine to do 4, but I think
Now you got,
3 and 4 both
yeah.
cover the same issue.
If anybody wanted to make an amendment.
Okay. Let's have a roll call. On the motion, again, the motion is to approve it as the language is that you have before you in G.
Has it been seconded, sir?
Yes, we've had that.
Okay.
We already have a motion on the floor. Roll call,
Who
please.
made the original motion and second?
Pardon?
Who made the motion and second?
Well, the original motion was made by member Mr. Rice. He made the motion at our last meeting.
Vice Chairman Spidell?
No.
If you want the language that you have before you to continue, you should vote yes. If you don't want it to continue, then you should vote no.
Oh, wait. I'm kind of confused. By voting which way, do we agree with the 50%?
We haven't gotten to that motion yet.
If you're interested in
You
changing
have
the
to
language,
dispose of the, you have to dispose of the original motion, one way or the other.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Secretary Richardson?
No.
Member Porter?
No.
Member Riley?
No.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant?
No.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. Excuse me, no. Oh. Of all of that, huh? After all of that. After all of that. Yeah. Now you're back to, right. So do we have a motion relating to item G, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
No. 1, 2, and 5. Do you want that in a motion?
Well, and also you can address 3 and 4 if you'd like.
Well, I thought we were supposed to get rid of 3 and 4.
No, you need to address what can be counted as far as in the tree protection area.
Oh, my God. Okay.
I think it was
And
the commission.
suggestion, I think by the compromise committee ordinance, was 50% on wetlands. And so if you want to do that, that would be to, the tree protection areas may be located in the code required buffers. 50% of the required tree protection area within wetlands and wetland buffers.
What about number 4? Do you include that?
You would, again, also say 50% of the forested wetlands, provided they're free of.
Pepper plants? Can I say so moved?
As long as this
Second.
secretary, okay, we have a motion and second. Again, it is changing 3 and 4 to allow only up to 50% of the tree protection area and wetlands to be counted towards that. We have a motion and
So
second.
you want the 50% in 3 also?
Yes.
Okay.
3 and 4.
Do you want to include CUPs in development agreements?
Oh, let's muddy this up some more. Oh,
You can deal
I
with
have
that
no problem
separately.
with that. And we include staff's suggestion under 3 to add CUPs in development agreements. Is that all right with the maker of the motion, Member Spidel?
Yes, I'm happy now.
And the second? Okay. Roll call.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Member Childs?
No.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel?
Yes.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. And moving down to tree protection area, legal protection H, what is the intent here? And subdivision shall show all proposed tree protection area tracts and easements and with sufficient protective language. You feel as though, what is the intent? Staff, is this the section that Mr. Parrish at our last meeting raised grave concern about just allowing canopy within individual lots or easements on individual lots because of state law that allows homeowners to cut down their trees?
Yes, sir.
And so he thought we ought to address that and change that. That's the impression that Mr. Parrish gave me. I mean, the language that I thought perhaps might work would say, in commercial or industrial areas, preserve canopy, and we can change it over to tree protection areas. Should be placed in protected tracts or easements when possible. And then in residential developments or subdivisions, tree protection areas should be placed in tree tracts or easements provided the preserved canopy is protected from removal by lot owners and the canopy is the property of the homeowners association. What I'm saying is if it's in the preserved area, that homeowner does not own that tree. If you want to protect it from, and I'd be very interested in hearing from legal counsel, because as Mr. Parrish brought up, and I think you did too, there is a problem with having them as easements on individual lots, tree protection. The suggestion by the tree committee and the TEC is that they be outside of individual lots in tree tracts, which does make it a lot simpler, but I'm not sure the language I'm suggesting here might accomplish what Mr. Rice was trying to accomplish, which is allow preservation areas as an easement on lots, provided we had this protective language, is that the homeowners association owns the tree. Do you have a suggestion? I'm trying to accomplish what Mr. Rice wanted and accomplish what Mr. Parrish suggested by allowing a easement that could go across individual lots administered by the homeowners association as a preserved area.
I think anytime that we have a tree on private property, regardless if there's an easement for the tree, for tree protection, that we run into the challenge with the state statute that allows a homeowner to remove trees on their property. At the end of the day, it still remains their property. And so I think the cleanest way is to require for those trees to be outside of the individual lots.
Well, based upon that, then we would need to look at either this section or another section to make sure that we accomplish what you're saying. In the section we're really talking about is flipping back to page 5, where tree protection area requirements. Mr. Rice made the motion that preserved canopy should be placed in protected tracts or easements when possible. And I think that's fine for commercial and industrial sites, but when we get to residential, we won't accomplish the objective if the homeowners can cut the trees down. So your suggestion would be that in residential subdivision, preserve canopy using the tree protection area shall be placed in tree tracts. As I see it, that's what you're saying.
Well, the current language that says proposed tree protection area tracks, I think that can stay. I think that the challenge really is with the easements language, because again, easement doesn't sufficiently protect. So maybe removing the word easement might help.
But I think we should give industrial and commercial flexibility to put them in, since you do not have the same state statute allowing the city has some rights to protect trees on where we don't on the individual homeowner lots.
Correct. So maybe breaking them out between residential and other
Okay, my
non-residential.
suggestion is that apply to easements, tracts, or easements apply to commercial and industrial, but residential would be in the tree tracts.
Subdivision, that's a good point. Subdivision could also mean an industrial commercial subdivision, so we'd want to be clear. And then also, if we use the word residential, that could include multifamily apartments that currently are require a site plan that I think the state statute is specific to single families, but I'm not 100%. I'd have to reread that.
Well, do we have consensus with the commission to break this out, to separate it so we do provide protection for tree protection area for single-family residential subdivisions being placed in tree tracts? Do we have consensus on that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll defer to staff, the exact wording, but we do have the consensus to clear that up as Mr. Parrish suggested. We are page 6. We indicated that item 4 could be taken out. We covered item G. We're at H on page 6. Does staff have any? You have a number of comments concerning any recommendation.
Sorry, I was still typing notes from the last one. Which section are we at?
H.
So you're asking for a suggestion for commercial and industrial?
Do you have any suggestions on, you're asking for clarification or words missing? Your highlight there in sufficient protective language, is that what you're suggesting be inserted?
The question from staff on the sufficient protective language is, what does that mean? What is the sufficient protective language that this body is envisioning to be included? It's also included under 3 for non-subdivision site plans shall be permanently protected with sufficient protected language. What is sufficient? Is it just an easement? Is it just a tree tract? I mean, is that by itself, or is there something more? I think that was Woody's proposed
Well,
language.
Yes, that was Mr. Wright's suggestion. Is with easements or tree tracts, isn't that what you're looking for?
Yes, rather than sufficient
Sufficient,
protective
okay.
language, to replace the word sufficient protective language with tree tracts or easements.
Okay. Do we have a motion to make those corrections?
Yes, in item 8.1, replace the phrase sufficient protective language. Replace the phrase sufficient protective language with, now I've forgotten what I'm supposed to say.
Tree
With
tracts or
tree
easements.
tracts
Or easements.
or easements in homeowners declaration documents.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel? Member Porter?
Yes.
Chairman Severs?
Yes.
And the staff comment before that, that's asking for clarification of whether there's words missing here. I think the commission's intent was to say that these tree preservation tracts and easements must be shown on the plat that is recorded in the public records of Brevard County. And that's a little different than it's a little confusing how it's written currently. So if that's the intent,
Okay.
then we can.
Yep. I think we have consensus to that.
Okay, great.
Moving down to section 3,
I can explain this one if you'd like me to.
proceed.
So the criteria for removal is different in the 2 categories for specimen and heritage. That's one of the issues. In the very beginning, there is an exception on the criteria for removal A. It says, except heritage trees. And then later on, there is a list of criteria for heritage trees. And so what follows under A, heritage trees do not have to abide by, but specimen trees do. And so my question is, do you want to make an exception for specimen trees under A so that they only follow F? Is that your intent? So if you go down to 32F.
Our intention was the criteria for removal of heritage trees be more onerous or difficult than they were for specimen trees. And they are.
So right
they-
now,
we intentionally want additional criteria for removal of heritage trees.
which leads me to also my next question, that the specimen trees under F are distinct from G, the criteria for removal of, or sorry, E, the removal for heritage trees.
Yes.
We wanted to make sure that they're supposed to be distinct. So that was the only question that I had under A. And if you want specimen trees to follow A 1 through 5, as well as F, then we'll leave it as is.
I think that was the intention.
Okay.
So any additional questions on page 8? You had something that the decision goes to BAA following, subsequent to the tree board? Are you wanting,
For heritage trees, I would recommend that the final decision go to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, yes. That's a comment on the side. On July
I mean,
20th.
we're just a recommending body. That's going to be a decision
Right,
of city
and
council, but they may want to hear it.
My next statement is just that the council is going to have a workshop on July 20th where this
Okay.
question will be asked
I-
of them.
No, they will be asked that question. Okay. Page 9,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
back to page 8.
yes.
Under the section E regarding heritage trees, maybe we can't do this because of legal reasons, but there isn't anything under this provision that says a homeowner who buys property that has a heritage tree on it after a year of living there can't remove it. Is there anything we could do to preserve heritage trees post-development? Because if we could, I'd like to add a section to say that.
As I understand, state law doesn't draw any distinction between heritage trees or specimen trees, or, is that correct? As it relates to a homeowner cutting down his tree.
The new law says, it was from 2019, a local government may not require a notice, application, approval, permit, fee, or mitigation for the pruning, trimming, or removal of a tree on residential property if the property owner obtains documentation from an arborist certified by the International Society of Arboriculture or a Florida licensed landscape architect that the tree presents a danger to persons or property. So they have to get a certification from an arborist that the tree is a danger to persons or property, and then it can be removed by state statute.
Well, could we add a provision that heritage trees may not be removed barring what was the word, what was the language,
The statute says that if an arborist provides a document, certification that the tree presents a danger to persons or property, then the city can't require a permit of any kind for that removal.
So in other words, put a provision in there that says heritage trees cannot be removed post-development unless there is a danger to persons or property.
Member Riley, would that have been addressed by the criteria subsection 5? Whether the tree is dead, diseased, or weakened by age, storms, or fire, or other natural injuries? That's one of the review criteria currently.
Right, but what if again, the landowner buys the property, got the heritage tree on it, and a year later, the tree is not diseased or weakened? Is he free to just chop that tree down?
No.
Shouldn't we put something in there proactive to safeguard those trees unless, it may be duplicative, but I just don't want to leave any gaps there.
says following state statute.
You do realize, don't you, that in probably 50% of these cases where these trees are removed, the problem is they're close to the house, and insurance companies require their removal, or they won't cover them for insurance. Whether it's dead or alive, insurance companies are not writing policies that trees, no matter how big, may fall on the house. They're protecting their risk.
Well, that would fall under the category of removal of trees for protection of person or property.
But does it have to be certified by an arborist?
An arborist could make that certification that it's a risk to the property.
Well, that would add an expense to the homeowner.
Well, that's what the statute requires right now.
I think the majority of these cases are not using an arborist to decide that the tree has to go down. They're talking, insurance companies are talking about their risk management people deciding that the tree has to be removed. I'm just making it complicated for you. But that's a fact. That's happening.
We're talking about criteria for removal.
Can a city, or can a city ordinance conflict with a state statute? And the answer is no.
No, the state
I know
preempts
that,
us.
correct, but I know that Commissioner Riley wants to assure that somebody with a chainsaw is not cutting down trees in their own yard. Am I correct, Ms. Riley?
Not cutting down a heritage tree.
A heritage tree, okay. On the other hand, state statute says you can with these provisions. So why then do we have to mess around with this? Or do we need to put a clause in saying follow state statute number blah, blah, blah?
I know from personal experience that if you want to cut a tree down, you have to contact a tree company, and they pretty much all certified and licensed businesses have an arborist, and they're in the business of cutting down trees, and so they've made it quite easy for the homeowner to get a document certification saying that a tree's a risk or a danger to persons or property. So that's not really a prevalent concern for Floridians, but what we are concerned with the protection of anything outside of that. There's nothing we can do about the fact that the state passed this statute. We have to live with it and do the best that we can for everything else.
Would Ms. Riley feel better about putting some kind of criteria in there that just replicates state statute?
That's already in the ordinance on
Okay.
page 263. It says removal of trees on residential property which pose danger to persons or property in accordance with section 163.045 Florida statutes for which no replacement tree will be required. That's one of the exceptions that's just discussed.
Could we require to put these heritage trees in legally in tree protection areas?
Not if it's already on residential property developed. That's what you're discussing.
Right.
I think if it's on a tree tract and not owned by the homeowner, then that's a different situation.
Right. But we're talking about.
But you're talking about someone who buys a house and finds a heritage tree and contacts a tree removal company, and they have somebody that will certify yes. I really don't think we can do anything
Okay,
about it.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, going back to the other comment on page 8 of 17, the word code requirement is highlighted. with the comment, must be consistent with code requirements. Everything has to be consistent
Yes.
with code and requirements, so
Understood.
we can remove that.
Yes.
Okay.
No problem. Page 9. Staff has some suggestions. I have no problem with your recommendation for removal be inserted. And I have no problem with your comment that
The removal is proposed language that was just highlighted for the comment that the ratio is being used as the basis for preservation as opposed to the merits of an individual tree. So it's just looking at the number proposed for preservation as a criteria for whether or not one particular tree should be removed.
Okay.
So staff's recommendation is to delete both 12 and 13. As in 13, the reference is no longer included in this ordinance.
Do we have a motion to accept staff's recommendation deletion of 12 and 13?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel? Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant? Chairman Severs?
Yes. Moving to page 10. I don't see any comments. Anyone have any questions or comments? Not seeing any. Page 11. This is the other section I mentioned to you earlier as far as the staff's recommendation was that the mitigation credit for wetlands be up to 50%. This commission by 4-3 voted to change it from 50% to 100%. I would just respectfully suggest that we ought to go along with the staff's recommendation, the compromise ordinance recommendation. That the persons who voted in favor of the original motion were Member Rice, Member Porter, Member Aton, and Member Grant. So any of those four, if they want to reconsider this item, could do so. If not, we can move on. Okay. Moving on down the page, under subsection I, incentive, number 2 at the bottom of the page, there's a typographical that residential to get the incentive is 35% or greater, commercial is 30% or greater, industrial. So the 30% for residential should be 35%. It's just a typographical Scrivener's error, so it'll be corrected accordingly.
Does that require a motion? Okay.
Okay, page 12, anyone have any comments, suggestions? Page 13. Page 14, member of the public pointed out on 14, 30-324A residential, number 1, that the change from 10% to 15% is incorrect. it should reference, just like the commercial and industrial reference the earlier section, which is 30.315 and the percentage there, so. Yes, sir.
Chairman, I think the difference there being this is the preservation of the total development area as opposed to the total canopy that's being required in 30.315. So I think that there's different units being measured, and so it's not just a strict change the number from one section to the other.
Can you explain a
Sure.
little bit
So,
more?
the way the code is currently written, how you have to preserve 10% of the lot or 10% of the parcel, that doesn't take into account how much of that has canopy. There may be large gaps in the canopy within that 10% native vegetation, whereas what we're saying with the canopy is that all of that must be 100% canopy area, and so that may be more than 10% of the parcel.
Well, why are we leaving commercial and industrial the way it is and not residential? And at the time, I asked, do we really need this section, since we already have the canopy in another section?
Right. So this is what canopy is replacing, is this requirement for
Yes.
preservation area on the parcel. Now what we're doing instead is requiring a canopy area, so I think you're right that this no longer is necessary.
Okay.
Unless I misunderstand. Go ahead, Chelsea. Oh.
Okay. This is the section currently, we have the 1 acre and the 1.5 and 3 acre. We had a citizen, the representative of Sierra Club, who recommend that be in the earlier section. And I think that she is correct, that we clean that up. So if we're deleting that, then we would just transfer the 1 acre, the 1.5 acres, and 3 acres to the other section. Is that?
Sure. So this would change to a section that talks about exemptions or size requirements to meet.
Right. You want a motion, or we just?
On that one, could I get a motion, please?
Okay. We have a motion to basically delete section 30-324 and transfer because we already have the canopy requirements, preservation requirement in another section, and also the exemptions of 1 acre, 1.5, and 3 acres to the other section.
So moved.
We have a motion second. Member Riley, did you have something?
I was just going to say.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Are we,
Yes.
are we totally eliminating or erasing section 30-324 altogether? All of it?
Well, do we still need some other, I'll defer to staff to look at that as far as the other portions that's still in there as it relates to landscaping. Okay? Good catch, sir. And anything else on 14, 15?
I think we have a motion that needs to be voted on.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. Anything on 14 additional or 15 or 16 or 17? We've gone through it. Are there any other additions? We had some suggestions. I'm not saying we need or don't need to make those, but we have other suggestions and any additional changes or corrections that we want to recommend. Member Riley.
No, I don't have it.
Not hearing any. Member Richardson.
I just want to state for the audience, it's taken 2 years to pass this ordinance. You've seen how long it takes to make laws and ordinances. You know, I would make a motion, we recommend approval of the tree ordinance to council.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. Roll call?
Vice Chairman Spidel.
Yes.
Secretary Richardson.
Yes.
Member Porter.
Yes.
Member Riley.
Yes.
Member Childs.
Yes.
Member Grant.
Yes.
Chairman Severs.
Yes.
I'd like a comment, sir.
You like a comment?
Yes.
All right.
I'd like to compliment each member of the public who has suffered through the last 2 years and been with us with this, provided outstanding information, paperwork, prayers, whatever it took to get this, except it's not passed by council yet. So continue the prayer chain and attend meetings, so-called.
Before we start the next item, does council, I could mention like a brief, you want an ice cream? 5-minute break. Could be back at 5 after. Zoning Commission back to order. Now moving to new business, I was asked by one commissioner whether or not staff thought we should table any items or the commission members wanted to table any items. We have a number of individuals here on items, so as far as I'm concerned, we will plow ahead. But I don't see any lights, so the next item on the agenda is right-of-way 1-2021 Riverside Drive. I reside on Riverside Drive and was heavily involved in negotiation together with Mr. Ron Norris and Mr. John Evans and some others concerning this agreement. Even though I do not have a legal conflict of interest, I have an opinion on it, and therefore, in consultation with counsel, I feel as though it's appropriate that I not participate. As such, I do plan on saying something on the item. I did speak with legal counsel about the item. I have a procedural concern that has nothing to do with the merits. I do not think that the number one, this is Riverside Drive. That is a road that's been there since 1925, according to the plat. And I think at a minimum, courtesy notice should be sent to the residents of Riverside Drive, notifying them of it. In addition, I don't think that and I showed this to legal counsel, where it says, in addition, notice shall be posted on the subject right away at least 10 days prior to the public hearing. I'd never really noticed that there was a notice because the road is blocked because of construction going on. I did get out of my car and walk around and ultimately found a sign, which is if you're going southbound on Riverside Drive, which you cannot go southbound on, you might see it. I did look at that, and then I noticed 4:30 this afternoon, prior to coming to the meeting, that there was a sign on the northbound that appeared. But again, the road is blocked. You can't go that way. There's a detour. So I don't feel as though there's adequate notice to the public that of this matter, together with the people on Riverside Drive being informed that this application even exists. I spoke with two people. I spoke with Mr. Evans. He didn't receive a letter. He had no clue this was pending. I spoke with another resident on Riverside Drive. He had no clue that this application is pending. Historically, I always thought, even on change the name of a road, the city had given notice as a courtesy matter to those people. So procedurally, I think the item should be tabled, but I'm not making a motion. If you want to proceed, that's certainly fine. I can show you the pictures of the sign as well as where it's located. The one that was there over the weekend, I think there's a new one there, another one there, or maybe it blew down, I don't know. But anyway, I would respectfully suggest that Member Riley.
Yes, I also live on Riverside Drive, and I agree with the chair's comments that there needs to be notice given to the people on that street before we discuss this. I
Chairman, the public notice sign was posted before the street was closed, and mailings did go out to the appropriate distance. However, staff is supportive of placing a new sign and advertising or sending mail-outs to additional homeowners along Riverside Drive if the commission chooses to table tonight.
I
mean, the road has been closed at least 2 weeks.
The road
Yes,
has
the
been
sign has
closed
been there.
since the shut down of the school, before the end of school. That was the 1st of June, second day of June. The road has been closed.
If I could ask that notice be given to every homeowner on Riverside Drive and also on Indian River Avenue, because it would impact those people as well.
Chairman, I move to table this request. 1-2021 Riverside Drive, the River Palms.
You're acting as chair now, okay?
Oh, so I'm not allowed to put, oh. I recommend that, can I say that? We table this for further discussion and notification, staff notification of all property owners affected on Riverside Drive and probably Indian River Avenue, from Palmetto down to the junction of Riverside.
In order to avoid a conflict, since you're now the chairman, acting chairman, and Mrs. Riley lives on the street, since I live in the old Indian River City, I make a motion that we table this item until the next meeting, or until staff adequately notifies everyone on Riverside Drive and Indian River Avenue, because it's a common exit for a lot of traffic.
Well, I second.
Roll call vote?
Member Riley?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is CUP 2-2021 Cape Run Road. Staff?
All right, so this item begins on page 123 of you all's agenda. Let you guys take a second to get there. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow warehouse and wholesale use to be located along Capron Road. The property is zoned light industrial services and warehousing M1, and the applicant proposes to use the current site as is. Section 28-221C1 of the code requires the CUP approval when the future land use designation of the property is not industrial. The existing use to the north of the site is single-family residential. To the south is a tile and flooring warehouse. To the east is the FEC railroad and outdoor storage. And to the west is residential. The property measures 2.1 acres, and the applicant does not propose to make any improvements to the site. Staff recommends approval of the request with one condition, as you can see, and that concludes my presentation.
Any questions of staff at this time?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question because the old Parker Drive that has never been paved, that right-of-way still exists to the north of this, adjacent to it. How does that affect the CUP in this area? I don't have any problem with this CUP. I'm going to support it. But the staff has over the years, the last 2 or 3 years, they've forgotten about Parker Drive, which is a dedicated right-of-way.
Are you asking that Parker Drive be paved?
No, I'm just asking how the staff would deal with Parker Drive adjacent to the north of this complex. That's not mentioned in your report. It is a dedicated street. I believe it was never paved because there's no houses on the street. Either we got to think, not necessarily tonight, but vacating that street or continue it as a street. It won't go, it probably will never cross the tracks. So that portion that Mr. X-Line is adjacent to, we probably vacated. But the other part of Parker Drive, I'm concerned about too.
So the applicant is encouraged or they have the opportunity to apply for that vacate, but because the vacate would expand the applicant's property, the city wouldn't initiate a vacation on its own. The applicant would have to request that and ask for additional land be incorporated into their property. But you're right, that there's an additional sliver there that is not being used that could be incorporated into the part of this property.
Yeah, otherwise it'll just live on forever.
Any other questions? Member Riley?
No, I'm sorry, no.
That's all right. Okay, do we have any cards on this item?
No, sir.
Staff's recommendation is to approve the CUP to allow the warehouse and wholesale use on the property located at 405 Cape Run Road. With the following condition, install the landscaping consistent with the approved 2009 site plan. Member Richardson.
I move to recommend approval of CUP 2-2021 with that one condition of landscaping.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel? Yes. Chairman Severs?
Yes. Next item is the CUP 3-2021, 1450 Harrison Street, Grove Church School. Staff.
Right, so this item begins on page 137. See the agenda. Let the PowerPoint load up. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to operate a child care facility use within the existing church located at 1450 Harrison Street. The CUP request is for the preschool addition. It's a requirement through the conditional use permit that was granted CUP 2-2017 that allowed the church use at the site. The preschool will utilize 10,000 square feet of the existing church. The existing use to the north of the site is undeveloped residential. To the east and west and south of the site are some commercial uses, along with multifamily residential uses to the east. And the subject property is located in the community commercial zoning district. Staff does recommend approval of the request with some conditions. And that concludes the presentation.
Okay, is there any questions of staff at this time? Member Riley?
No.
No? Are there any cards on this item?
Yes, 2 cards.
Okay.
Chris Harvey.
Good afternoon, Chris Harvey, 1545 Silk Oak Avenue in unincorporated Titusville, but here on behalf of Lloyd Contracting and the client Grove Church, and I'm available. We support the project. We've been working with the client for the last 5 years on this phase development, and I'm available to answer any questions that staff may have.
Any questions for Mr. Harvey? Member Richardson?
Yeah, I support the Grove and the improvement of that area. But I have one concern. I'm not opposed to the daycare. I fully support that too. Is the daycare, the out parcel of the daycare, the outside, going to be adjacent to Barna? That's already been fenced off?
That's correct. So the client, the owners are here in the audience as well, but they have, based on the requirements of the state, and going through that process with them to be licensed as a preschool, so to speak. They're going to go through pre-K, I believe. That's why we're calling it a school. But they're required to have an outdoor activity area where they can stretch and get some sunlight. I don't believe there'll be anything out there such as playground equipment, things along those lines, but there may be a bench. There's an egress point for emergency purposes, and that activity area is what you see along the west side on Barna.
I'm just concerned that being that close to Barna, there may be some, risk of a car hitting the fence or somebody going over the fence that shouldn't be or something like that. It's too close to Barna, in my opinion, but I'll go along with whatever. I just want to hear the applicant.
Would you like them to come up now, or would you all want to finish with me first? We had to go back.
I'm concerned on the avenue and the fence situation, but I'm concerned about the avenue fence situation.
We need a temporary recess because we're not recording.
Ice cream time, okay. I knew I'd.
Can I
Yes,
come
sir.
back to address the Barna questions? Naturally, the site being an existing site has its own challenges. So on the south side of the property, we've got vehicular traffic. On the east side of the property, we've got vehicular traffic. On the north side of the property, we've got woods and a ditch and other challenges. And that leaves us to the west side of the property. So the area that we presented on Barna was a requirement of the state. And I believe as well, ACSI accreditation weighed in on that as well. And so the client went in and put in a 2-foot tall concrete wall, a 4-foot tall wrought iron fence on top of that to keep those children safe, and then put egress measures as far as a gate for them to be able to get out. But they have to be able to go outside. So those two agencies regulate that activity, and both of them have given them their blessing. So that's why that area was put in. It is set off the side of the road. Speed limit in there isn't terrible, but there's no really other better place to give these kids an opportunity to get outside, little ones, with some structure. So, we've met all of their concerns. Now the fourth step, so everything comes together, is to have the CUP presented and approved by the city so that they can actually issue those licenses.
Any other questions? Member Spidell?
I'd like a comment, first of all, to the Grove Church for occupying that decade-long eyesore. Thank you so much. But also what Grove Church does for the community at all levels. I know what they've done for secondary students at Titusville High School, the support of the school, local schools, and now if you're going into daycare and pre-K, congratulations. I think we're just concerned about the safety of kids, but I think you're concerned about the safety of kids too. So thank you, first of all, for taking that terrible eyesore and doing something with it that is attractive, and also improving a part of the city that desperately needed improvement.
Member Porter?
Just a comment, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a daycare, maybe a block, on the same side of Barna. And I don't know of any history of any things going on as far as accidents and things like that. I think what the Grove Church is doing is a excellent thing, and I don't see any issues with any problems with the kids outside in that particular area. Matter of fact, I think the other place is closer to Barna than where they're talking about. So I have no issues with that. Just my comment.
Member Richardson?
Yeah, I've got to compliment the Grove Church also, but I think the one that you're referring to has an exercise yard in the back, not on the adjacent to Barna. Yeah. And it's just my concern that you'll have it properly, people there that can probably supervise the children and make sure they don't get close to the fence.
Okay. Next card.
Dustin Sams.
Dustin Sams. I reside at 4211 Will Scarlett in Titusville. I am the executive pastor role at the Grove Church, and I'm here to answer questions. I appreciate, first of all, the kind words that you've said to us. We've worked hard for that, but I'm here for additional questions. If you want me to go ahead and acknowledge those or address the concern, that was a very, very big deal in planning. Of course, we went back and reinforced where what could be with that's the reason that we didn't just do a normal fence 6 foot high. We did 3 courses of block core poured that then was tied into the foundation. So the additional measures have been done aside from the fact that obviously children out there from the ages that they'll be completely supervised within standards and recommendations, even exceeding beyond what is required of us. So we've done everything that we can, obviously, to keep, and we've got two great, big, wonderful trees that are right out there beside it, just for a point of making a reference to that. Any other questions? No, sir. No, sir. I just wanted to make sure that, in fact, they're specifically designed around the fence for that reason. So, any other questions for me?
Member Childs?
I just didn't want to be left out, and I congratulate you on running a great organization. I've heard nothing but good things, so I just don't want to
Thank
be
you.
left out.
It's very
Thanks.
appreciated, very much. We love Titusville, and we love serving.
I guess not to be left out, I have a granddaughter that likes to go there every Wednesday night and enjoys it, went to camp and thoroughly enjoyed that, wants to go back.
Wonderful.
She made that very clear.
Very much. Thank you. That's a good sign. I'll pass that on.
Any other questions?
Members, I do want to mention that per the condition, they are required to implement, per the landscape from the 2017 site plan, some additional trees in addition to the existing trees. So just wanted to point that.
Okay. And you have no problem with the conditions as recommended by staff? Is that correct?
No problem at all.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, Member Porter.
Just out of curiosity, how many students do you expect?
We have been approved up to 118 children during that time frame. By no means are we anywhere near that, but that's just the approval from state ACSI up to 118. Well, agreed. They're not all outside playing at the same time.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? We'll close the public hearing. Member Richardson.
Yes, I would, I'd make a motion to recommend approval of conditional use permit 3-2021
With the conditions?
with the conditions.
All right. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Yes. Roll call.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. Next item is Elizabeth Oaks Townhouse sketch plat.
Chairman, the applicant is not available to make it tonight and has requested that this item be tabled to the next meeting.
Do we have a motion to table?
I'll make a motion to table Elizabeth Oaks Townhouse sketch plan
Microphone.
to the next. I make a motion to table the Elizabeth Oaks Townhouse sketch plat till the next meeting of Planning and Zoning.
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Table to the next meeting. Next item is Verona Village D sketch plat.
Making progress. So Verona Village D is a proposed 77-lot, single-family home subdivision on approximately 121.3 acres, located west of Willow Creek Boulevard and north of Verona Phase 1 subdivision. The overall Verona, which is formerly known as Willow Creek development, consists of 675-plus acres and in 2016, the remaining portion of the development, not including Phase 1, was rezoned to a PUD, planned unit development, to allow for an additional 1,277 residential units and 172 acres of commercial and light industrial use. I'm sorry, this is page 189 of 309. And if you're in the PDF, it is page 190.
Anything else? The staff report, okay. I just want to share with the commission the conversation I had with staff today. I probably will get into trouble for this, but so I will. My concern is, and I have talked about sketch plats and the report to council, I have no question whatsoever about Honeycutt and Associates and their outstanding job that they do and have done. My problem is the staff report. It doesn't list any criteria. It doesn't list the lot and building requirements. The zoning for this property supposedly is PUDZ. I go to look in the online land development regulations and I cannot find PUDZ in the code or any of the criteria. There's nothing in staff report that discusses the wetlands, how much wetlands there is, nothing that discusses buffers. I feel as though it's our job as a commission to review an application based upon the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations. And there's nothing that demonstrates or shows the land development regulations other than what the applicant displays in their documents. So I have no clue is there a 20%, 35% common open space requirement? The staff report says nothing. I mean, I've had conversations, not with Eddie about this, but Mr. Parrish in the past. I was told, well, we used the template that was used 5-10 years ago. Well, fundamentally, our job is to look at the code, see whether or not this sketch plat complies with it or not, and we are given no information or guidelines whatsoever. And I mean, I don't know. And so that is my concern about the staff report. I feel as though there should be something given to us. Where is the PUDZ ordinance? Zoning, it's a zoning district according to the plans. Where is it in the code? I mean, staff doesn't supply it to me, and I go online to find it, and I can't find it. Is it a part of the PD ordinance now? Is a question.
No, it's not a PD, it's a PUD.
Why isn't it in the land development regulations that are online that you try to research and see what the lot and building requirements are?
Well, we've made some great strides with putting things and being transparent on the web, and unfortunately, we're not at that point with the GIS where you can click the zoning ordinance on the zoning map and see the actual ordinance that implemented or that adopted that zoning category on there. But we're hoping to improve that in the future.
What is in the PUDZ ordinance, what is the common open space requirement?
I think the PUDZ ordinance was mailed out to the commission members. I don't know off the top of my head, but I have it here in the agenda start packet as well. We could take a look through there.
if it was sent out to me, I didn't receive it that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't know how we can judge this plat if we don't have the tools to look at to see whether it complies. I mean, am I being unreasonable, Commission? And that's not fair to Mr. Honeycutt.
Adequately read what's been put on the computer.
What is the lot size in the PUDZ ordinance?
Member Spido, what does that mean that you're having trouble reading? Is it because the resolution is?
Yeah, it's not the resolution, it's just I keep going between 25% and 75%, and Lord knows where I am now.
You don't need to be on the microphone.
Maybe it's the hour of the evening.
Are we trying to find the ordinance? Is that what we're doing?
I'm trying to find a specific reference to open space within the ordinance. The ordinance did not come up with any search terms. I'm still looking through the other documents in the Agenda Star folder.
Ms. Brown?
Yeah, could we table this until we receive the ordinance and other documents that staff could send to us about this?
Okay, so that's a motion.
Yes.
And this is the second to that motion.
You second the motion?
I did. Because I cannot, on the screen, I can't make heads or tails of this.
It looks like Mr. Honeycutt would like to say something.
Yes, I was about to recognize you. Mr. Honeycutt?
It's on. Oh, yeah. Rodney Honeycutt, 3700 South Washington Avenue in Titusville. And it's been very difficult, time-consuming getting to this point on the sketch plat. And so I'm sure my client would not want to table this. The project was zoned PUD several years ago. And in the PUD, you set your own lot sizes and setbacks. And so those setbacks and lot sizes set on here are greater than the ones we set up. We had a minimum of 40 feet wide lots, and these are 50 feet. The setbacks all meet those requirements, and those are all approved years ago. And so,
Mr. Honeycutt, I appreciate that, but none of that was sent to us. As a matter of fact, I had to ask for the master plan and the ordinances in connection with the master of that. That was not supplied to us either.
but that wouldn't be my client's fault.
I know you did what you did. I have no question about that. But I'm just expressing frustration whenever we're expected to review a sketch plat in accordance with comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance, and we don't have access to any of the information to show whether it complies or doesn't comply. We have nothing.
So when did you get the packet for the staff report? Could you have time?
Thursday, last Thursday.
Okay, so today's a week later.
Pardon?
Today's Wednesday, right? A week later. I mean, could you have asked staff or something?
I asked them, I asked for stuff, sir. The first thing I asked for was a copy of the master plan.
And so I'm requesting that it's not tabled. That's all I can do. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Chairman, I did find on page, excuse me, page 193 of the agenda packet is the cover sheet for the sketch plat. And Mr. Honeycutt's provided the requirements for the common open space as was asked for previously, which is 35%. And I know that that's not the official document requiring that, but that's to answer the question, what was provided is 35% open space.
I certainly saw that you supplied that. I certainly saw that. There was a motion made by Member Riley and seconded Mr. Honeycutt would prefer this not be tabled. We do have a motion. Do you want to withdraw your motion? Do you want to proceed with it, or what?
How does the rest of the members weigh in on that?
Well, I would ask the staff, I don't want to be incriminating about this, but did either of you write this report?
The agenda cover sheet on page 189? No. This was from our Development Services Office.
Well, unless there's a withdrawal of the motion, any further discussion on the motion?
Mr. Honeycutt, but I can't make a decision without viewing it or looking for complete information.
Do you think there's anything I can do? Is it technology-wise that I could help you with the finding the page?
Technology-wise, but it's also understanding, looking at the plat. No, go ahead and do what you have to do. And then I can't make a decision on this view. And I concur with the chairman. I have no idea what's going on here.
Yes, Member Porter.
Chairman, are there any questions that you could address to Mr. Honeycutt that may help you or help us make a decision
It's cranky.
without tabling it?
And it's almost 9:04.
Sure, I can ask
See,
some
that's where it's
questions.
going.
But I have no idea of what the
and
code
each one of them has
says.
to be addressed and,
Could staff help us with the code?
it's gonna go to 75, but you can't make any decision off of 75, even moving it with a hand.
That's a question. If there are any code questions, could staff answer?
No. The biggest thing
defer to
is
staff.
That's what I'm asking.
Right.
That's the big thing.
Are you requesting specifically
can't see-
requirements per the code that
If
could be
there are
addressed
any
right here, right
questions
now?
on code, could staff address them and answer them?
I'm not gonna make a decision based on this. Look at that. You can't figure it out either, right? Thank you. Okay. Okay. I apologize to staff too, but I think visually we could have a printout, a hard copy of any of these plats that we can't read. We're having to adjust the percentage for every view. It's been submitted to you and then made into, I guess, a document that then's transferred to the computer digitally, and they're all different percentages, so you can't read anything on it. It's a mess, okay? So it needs to go back to staff, and we'll apologize to Mr. Honeycutt for both his time and his effort. We appreciate his input, but we need to also make a reasoned decision on his work.
Just real quick, a note for the commission members that in the future, if you find that you're having an issue with the digital version when we mail it out to you, please let us know so that we can find another way of getting the information to you in a way that's more accessible.
If you could even at the next meeting, if we table this at the next meeting, if you could provide a hard copy of something we can read.
Well, I guess my point is we wouldn't want to have to provide hard copies of those large format pages for everyone if some people are able to receive the information in a
Whatever it takes.
So if you do need it, just let us know and we're willing to
I'm
make sure
letting you
to
know.
accommodate.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I have a question for staff. If there are any questions from us on code, could you guys provide us an answer tonight?
Do you have an example of a question that you have?
Well, I was just talking to the commission members, and they're saying if there are questions on code, could we get an answer? Since we don't have any access and didn't get access to it, could you answer those questions?
So the planning staff is one of the reviewers on the sketch plat when it comes through the Development Services Office. So we have had a chance to review it and make sure it's code compliant. As far as specifics, that review process happened probably about a month ago at this point. So if you have a specific question, I may or may not remember what was in the review. But if you do have questions that you want answered before you make a decision, always let staff know so we can provide that information to you.
Is that good? Is that good? Or you still would like to see the code?
Well, we have a motion pending right at the moment. Unless the motion withdrawn. You want to be heard, Mr. Fisher?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, members. My name is Robin Fisher, and I'm working with KB Homes. KB Homes submitted, I think for this sketch plat approval, probably, I think the first time was maybe December, January timeframe, and they've waited patiently with different staff issues as far as personnel and different things to be able to get to this point today. And by tabling it, you put them in a tougher situation because then it doesn't go in front of P&Z to the fall. And they're in a time crunch situation with getting some approvals done. It's been, staff has worked hard and we appreciate them and what they've done, but it's been very difficult to get to this point. And so I would ask that you please don't consider tabling it. I think that your staff has made a recommendation for approval because they have looked at the code and said we've complied with the code. And I'm not sure we should be punished if you're not happy with the way the staff report came out. If you want to turn it down, then I respect that, but please don't table it. I think we need to move forward, and we don't need to be punished for, because something's not there that you think might be there. I can assure you that this project's been looked at for the last 6 months, and it complies with all the codes of the city of Titusville. And from a standpoint, if you've never been out to Veranda and seen that development, it was 600 and something acres, and over 250 of it's been reserved for trees and conservation. And it's a model project that you probably would be glad to have every developer do it. And so the client's in the back, and he is very disappointed that if it will get tabled. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Member Riley, I know you're the one that made the motion. Based upon that, do you want to change your motion, withdraw your motion, or what do you want to do?
Motion as is.
How about the second?
I leave it as is.
Okay. Well, based upon that, let's have a roll call then.
Secretary Richardson,
Yes.
Member Childs,
No.
Member Grant,
No.
Member Riley,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidell,
Yes.
Member Porter,
No.
Chairman Severs.
No. So the motion did not pass 4-3. So, Mr. Honeycutt, I think you have a card in. You want to make your presentation?
That's still Rodney Honeycutt at 3700 South Washington Avenue. And by the way, you don't have to apologize to me, anybody, for that. I understand what you're saying. So this is the second phase of Verona. It's actually the first phase of the PUD, and it's 77 lots and about a half a mile of boulevard extension, and it includes the main amenity for the site. And so you'll see that there's a good bit of area preserved in wetlands that's outside the development area, and that's because the boulevard was part of this and the clubhouse. The development area, including everything, is about 54 acres out of the over 120 acres of the site of the plat. There are most of the areas around the lots and the road and the amenity, any area outside that basically is preserved. A lot of it is wetlands, but there is over 5 acres of uplands that are being preserved also. There is I know we talked about the last time connecting Phase 1 trail with Village D, and the area that we briefly talked about, we couldn't get access there because we had already preserved the wetlands in the earlier phase. When we were talking about it, it was in the other lots. However, we remembered that we do have an area that goes from the lift station to Village D, and so we're putting a trail over that. And then in Village D, if you'll notice, we have a trail that comes out on the southwest corner and goes around. Now, that is subject to being able to permit that with the Corps of Engineers and the St. John's. Hopefully they'll do that because we want a trail around the entire site. That's mostly it. You can see that we have a large stormwater area. That's because it includes the boulevard and Village D. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer those.
I would just like to add real quick, if I can, Chairman, that if you'll notice, there's two areas on the plat, and I want to see which page shows it the clearest. I would point you to, if you're able to see the documents, unfortunately. Let's see, this is page 207 of 309. There's two areas that used to be lots. The first is between lots 13 and 14. There's like a pie-shaped area, and then adjacent on the south side of lot 34. Those are areas that were previously proposed to be lots, but in negotiation during the sketch plat review, we were able to work with the applicant to get those to be tree preservation areas because of the large trees, or the large number of trees on those lots. And so the applicant was accommodating in creating additional tree preservation areas.
So one more thing I'd like to add. Well, first of all, that wasn't code requirement. That was going through the approval. Secondly, I mean, I understand what Member Spidell was saying. It can be hard to read the plans. We put on 24 by 36. And so if staff is not able to provide a set of plans and somebody needs one, I mean, we'll do it, because I want you to be able to review things when it comes through and, before the meeting. I understand that.
And just so you know, I did request a set of plans, and I did receive a set of plans. So, and I was able to read it that way. Anyone, Member Riley?
How large are the lots?
The lots are a minimum of 50 by 120. The PUD says was approved at a minimum of 40 feet wide.
How much of an acre is that?
It's probably an eighth neighborhood.
Member Childs?
I was going to say, I have a big monitor at home, so it's easier. These little laptops, it's a little difficult. But I've never reviewed a sketch plat before, so this is my first time. So I don't know really what to look for. But I guess you guys have reviewed all the code and make sure it's compliant. Is there anything? I guess I would ask if there was anything like close to code that we weren't sure about, because I know we go over this a lot. It was like, oh, I think you interpreted that wrong, or it was a little close. Is there anything close to you thought that was maybe not going to be compliant, or?
No, there wasn't anything concerning. I will point out that on page 189 of the agenda, the cover sheet for this agenda item, we include the submittal requirements for the sketch plat and then try to link which page you can find those requirements on, so you can try to follow along where in the document you can find
C11, like that.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? I have a couple of questions. Point 1.1, the minimum common open space is 35%. When I look at the code as it relates to PD, because I don't see anything relating to PUDZ, there's a definition of what common open space is. And you have labeled as common open space areas which are in the conservation that, as I recall looking at phase 1, that has barbed wire and a sign saying do not enter. And whether this is for you or staff, how can that be common open space?
And so along those areas, some of those areas like the boulevard, we have, and I don't think I printed those sheets.
Well, you have all these large wetlands area designated as common open space, and if it's like the other subdivision, which I assume it is, because I don't have any access to see what you have out there, it's barbed wire and a sign saying do not enter. And that doesn't meet the definition of any common open space that I'm aware of. And staff, help me out here. How do you classify that as common open space when, as I understand it, this is, a conservation easement dedicated to the St. John's Waterman District, and you can't enter on it.
I don't believe that the wetland preservation area was included as, it may be labeled as common open space, but the stormwater, the trail along the stormwater ponds with the fountains and the large, the recreation hall, clubhouse with a pool, and mail center.
But is that 35%? I mean, I'm looking at C3.8, common open space. And you just look at that, and it is what I say it is. That is, it's the conservation easement is designated as common open space, and I don't see how it can be. And without knowing what the zoning is and the definitions, I have nothing to, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong.
Didn't you say you got a copy of the PUD?
No.
Oh, I mean, not the ordinance, the approved PUD plan.
Yes.
So in the PUD plan, we call for that to be open space that was approved.
Well, I can show you what I got. I'm not sure I got what you're talking about.
Well, I don't have that with me. I just know that that was the case.
Well, another question I had deals with the floodplain on C 3.5. It looks to me like most of the subdivision, more than 50%, is within the floodplain.
So to be able to impact the area in the floodplain, you have to provide compensatory storage. And so,
Is there something on the plan that shows the compensatory storage? Because I didn't see it.
well, it's in the stormwater ponds that are already existing. If you see ponds 3 and 4, and so that was previously done with phase 1.
Okay, I know Huntington, for example, Huntington Park over on Park Avenue, they lost quite a bit of land because of compensatory storage, and I don't see it on the plan. And my next question is, I mean, our current code has 10% preservation for trees, the current code. I would imagine, and previously staff has said wetlands don't count. They told us that on Brooks Landing, that wetlands don't count towards Section 30-324 of the code, the 10% requirement. Do you have 10%? I know you have some, certainly because you have some uplands that are outside of the wetlands that are not a part of the subdivision. But do you have 10%?
Yes, we meet the code.
Okay. Well, I couldn't tell looking at, that's why I'm asking the question. And the staff, do they have 10% and meet the 30-324?
They do, otherwise we wouldn't have recommended approval. I think what the issue is that the wetlands are not counted as the total, similar to a developable area. And I'm not 100%, so I shouldn't even say that. But that's what I imagine is going on with this plat.
Well, let me say this, as you and I have had a conversation, I think it's great, the clubhouse, the trails. As I've told you before, I have a daughter who's in real estate in Fleming Island, and every little subdivision has pocket parks, and they all interconnect, and you can move about that way, and it's good to see that in this area. One of the questions I had, I see some trees being removed next to the clubhouse that are not parking lots or buildings, and I didn't understand why they're being removed.
If there are trees being removed that's not in a development area, then it had to be because of grading. It's the only reason.
Of the grade?
Yeah.
I'm looking at C 3.9.
Yeah, I didn't copy all the pages. I don't have that. I mean, we saved every tree we could. There's no question.
Okay, anyone else have any other questions? Anything else, Mr. Honeycutt, that you'd like to add?
No, I'm good.
I'm not that familiar with, I was a part of the original development agreement that developed the 1,200 and some units out there. And there was going to be, as a part of the original development, some estate-style homes. Large lots, large houses. Is that a part of the master plan now?
I can't answer that.
I would just say, one of the complaints in Titusville is we have a lot of smaller houses on small lots. If we want to attract executives, these companies, we have to have some estate types of homes, otherwise they're going someplace else.
Mhm.
And I would just encourage, this is an ideal development where that could occur. And I would encourage that to occur in one of the subdivisions or somewhere. It's ideal piece of property to do that.
And I agree with you.
You agree with me? Okay.
I just can't make that decision.
I understand. Anyone else has any questions?
Well, I'll be right here if you do. Thank you.
And let me just say, as the chairman, we certainly are glad you were here, despite everything. And we look forward. Well, good.
We have a village day, which is on the north side of the property, that's where the concept we're looking at for future development.
Okay. We would encourage that, sir. Anyone else have any questions? Otherwise, I guess the public hearing is closed. I guess it's, I don't know whether it's a public hearing or not. It's not legally advertised as such. This is a sketch plat. Member Richardson.
I just have a couple of comments. Eddie, you've done a magnificent job defending something you didn't write. It's obvious that it was not written by one of the planners. And several members, I'd say that, Chairman Severs and I, in many years, are familiar with sketch plats. But most of those members are not familiar with sketch plats. So the person who wrote this should be here.
Okay. We need a motion or some action on this item.
I move that Verona Village D sketch plat be approved.
You would recommend approval?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Vice Chairman Spidel? Secretary Richardson?
Yes, with reluctance.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. Next item is CUP 1 2021. Kennedy Point Marina. Robin, you going to represent this one? No, sir. No. Sir?
The applicant, Kent Oliver, on behalf of Applewood Apartments LLC, the owner, is requesting a CUP to expand the operation of a marina with the addition of approximately 240 square feet of office space on site, subject to site plan approval, to allow outdoor recreation and commercial amusement, which is boat rental, and for development located within 50 feet of a bulkhead line or altering the shoreline on property located at 4749 South Washington Avenue, including several parcels. If you notice, the staff has recommended approval with a number of conditions. I did want to point out that one of the conditions has since been removed. So let me just find that page real quick.
there's 3 conditions on page 237.
235?
237 in my.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure why we keep getting different page numbers. I wish we could all get on the same page.
It is 237.
Well, on mine it's 235, but again, it's either 235 or 237. And there's 3 conditions. The sewage pump out facility shall remain available if providing service to boats with onboard facilities. A boat with onboard facilities has restroom facilities and needs some type of sewage pump out. And so, to be consistent with the comp plan, there's one of the policies that says that a marina must provide pump out facilities if they're providing service to boats with these features. The second is to provide at least one educational sign to be installed in a publicly accessible area of the site to inform the public of the harmful effects of metal-based anti-fouling boat paint, specifically the bioaccumulation of heavy metals. So some boats have a protective coating to prevent barnacles from adhering to the hull of the vessel. And if you're using a version that has heavy metals, it could be toxic as it accumulates in the food chain. And the third is the existing billboard sign shall be removed as previously required in the conditions of CUP 1999-09. That's the condition that we're proposing to remove when this moves forward to City Council. The reason being that this condition was carried over from a past CUP that has since expired, and the staff does not believe that we currently have the ability to enforce the billboard to be removed just through the application of this conditional use permit.
Any Member Richardson?
Well, I kept my light on by accident, but I would state that Chelsea came up and looked at mine and Chris's, and ours say 237. So these should have the same thing on them, all these laptops.
It's weird because, yeah, the one that was sent, the link that was sent to us, it was page 235 at home, but here it's 237 on this PDF. It's weird.
Anything else, Member Childs?
Yeah. So I obviously reviewed this at home, but so and your recommendations, there were part of the review, I guess, and I guess there were different situations going on here where they were out of code compliance, and so there were also like a mention of 3 parking spaces that they needed as well. Is that not part of the conditions then, or is that a separate thing?
It's a separate thing. So conditional use permit is just establishing the use, and this is the chance to really what you use. Really, what you use a conditional use permit for is to apply conditions to the property for the sake of mitigating additional nuisances that are created by the use that's trying to be established. So if you anticipate, for example, a new not a public school, maybe like an aftercare school or something where there's children, and they're going to need to have a playground. Perfect example of what we had earlier. You may want to impose additional distance requirements or screening in order to keep the noise nuisance that might be generated from additional kids screaming near a residential neighborhood nearby. So really what you'd want to do is look at what nuisances might be created from this new use. And really what's being proposed is the marina use is already existing, but the code requires that there's a CUP for any expansion, which includes this 240 square foot. But like you mentioned before, this is something that is currently out there at the site. It's out of code enforcement has generated a code enforcement case on this item, and so this is the first step in becoming code compliant.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And what is the status of the code enforcement case?
It's pending the review of the CUP and the site development permit.
Well, I understand that, but if someone has what says in our report, a non-compliant fuel tank, did they secure a permit to install a fuel tank?
No.
Why isn't that a code violation?
My understanding is that it is.
I mean, that could be a public health safety issue. When I read that, that scares me next to the river and what action is being taken. If it's a non-compliant fuel tank, I don't know what's non-compliant, whether or not it doesn't have the necessary lining around it to protect overflows or what. But
I can't tell you specifically, but I can tell you that our fire marshal has generated about 3 pages worth of notes. So there's some substantial issues.
I don't
And
care about notes. If it's non-compliant, something needs to be done about it.
I'm sorry, not notes, comments that are part of the site development permit. If it's the commission's pleasure, you may include an additional condition in here to remove any fuel dispensing equipment that's currently at the site pending the approval of the site development permit, if you think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Chairman?
Yes.
Well, could we make a condition that the code requirements are met or the violations are adjudicated somehow? Or
If you do, that's important. If you do that, though, we kind of get in this catch-22 chicken and egg because we can't approve the site development permit until they've had the CUP approved, establishing the use. Really, those issues are going to be addressed during the site development permit.
Okay.
All I know is this has been pending, if it hasn't been resolved, since about July 21st, a year ago.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I've observed the site over the years, and it looks like more than one violation is occurring even today. So you're saying that this all will get them straight, including buffers, and this is a junkyard for boats.
So if you're saying that you have observed other code violations beyond
What appears to be violations.
I would highly encourage you to report those to code enforcement, just so that we can start to document those if they're not already a code enforcement action. Right now, those are the only 2 that I'm aware of: is the fuel tank and the structure, the office space structure.
I'm sure there's some kind of screening required, isn't there, for junk? Have you driven by this place?
I have.
It's junky. There's got to be some kind of... So it looks like they're trying to add on.
Right, so they
Or
have
they're in the process of adding on without following many standards here.
Right, so a temporary movable office space structure was placed on the site without any site development permit, and then as well the fuel dispensing tank. And so those are all things that we're hoping to get, or that we will get addressed through the site development permit. As far as buffers, typically we wouldn't require a site to make enhancements above, basically to become to today's standards until there's a Class 2 site permit. And so at this point, I think what they've proposed may or may not trip that. If they're having to add additional parking spaces, that may trip the impervious threshold. And so I couldn't tell you at this point whether they're going to be required to put in buffers.
And there's no one here to speak of this place?
No, Mr. Oliver is up north. I believe he's in Michigan. Minnesota, thank you. I knew it was an M. And he mentioned that he unfortunately wasn't able to make it with the hurricane travel issues, and that he plans to attend the council meeting.
Oh, go directly to council without passing go. Just a comment.
Okay, any other members? Spidell, you're done?
I'm done.
You're done. We don't have any cards, I assume, on this item. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so that open the public hearing, close the public hearing, come back to the commission. Additional questions and or a motion? Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass or to approve or recommend approval, right, of
With
with
the
the, with the
two
conditions,
conditions.
the three condition, or the two conditions. For CUP 1-2021.
Member Richardson?
A second.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Roll call?
Member Riley?
No.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Porter?
Yes.
Secretary Richardson?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Spidel?
No.
Chairman Severs?
Yes. Okay, next we turn to petitions and requests from the public present. Oh, he has plenty to say. All right, reports. Planning and Zoning Commission tree ordinance. I think we've taken care of that. City staff.
No report.
City attorney.
I have no report, thank you.
Thank you. Chairperson, no report. Members, anyone have any reports? Yes, member. Alternate member. Riley.
Yes. It was pointed out to me that the city council has changed their email policy so that interested citizens are not able to send an email to the staff to be disseminated to us regarding something that's coming up. And does anybody else have any information about that? Because I
heard the same thing.
think I would like to at least let council know that we disagree with that change. That it's helpful to see citizen comments before we have the meeting.
Member Riley, could I ask you to clarify? So you're saying what you understood is that currently members of the public can't email the staff to ask us to distribute something to you all?
That's what I've heard, yes.
We did that for tonight's meeting, and there's no intention on stopping that.
There was just, I think, the difference is that the cover encouraged people to send emails to one centralized location. The planning members could always utilize a person, an individual, to do that, like Eddie or Peggy sends emails on behalf of an individual to others as request, not necessarily a commission member, but a member of the public has been using that format to communicate their messages, comments on the tree ordinance, et cetera, to that email address. And I believe that is no longer. That's, I think, the only change, and that the individuals will have to either directly mail you, which I believe that roster has been provided to members of the public with your contact information, or if you have information to disseminate, then you would go through a liaison.
And it doesn't, for the planning, it doesn't specifically have to be one of the planners directly. We have a planning at Titusville.com email address that goes to all the planners. So if members of the public want to reach out to you all, they can send it there, and one of us can disseminate it.
Well, what I was told was that this was, they had allowed the emails due to the pandemic because people couldn't always come to meetings, so they could send these emails in an easy fashion. And this week, Scott Larice apparently sent something out.
So the changes on the announcement for the meeting, that the meeting notice for all boards and commissions doesn't read the same as it did prior to today. The message that I indicated to the community is, as an additional method for public participation, the public may submit written comments via email to planning@titusville.com prior to the start of the meeting, and then it will be disseminated. And so that's not a message that we're promoting on the agenda anymore, as that's, I think, the only change. That the message is not being conveyed as a notice for community.
Well, I think somehow the city manager or someone needs to put it on the web so that people know. Apparently there's some confusion on how they can communicate and send messages or send information to planning and zoning members or the city council.
I also have a situation where a member of the public contacted me on my cell phone, and I don't give that cell phone number out. So somebody's got it, and
If you gave your cell phone number on your application, it's on the board.
I didn't.
Okay, then I can't answer how they got your information.
I'm
but-
just really uncomfortable with, I suggested that the person come to a public meeting,
Sure.
and
No, I apologize, but typically the only way they can get it from us is if they request the board roster, which comes from the information that you've provided to the city clerk's office.
Each of you does have a cell listed on there. Well, most of you do.
do I?
Yes.
Is it 338?
Yes.
Please don't give that out.
Well, you'll have to contact the city clerk to let her know.
I'll
We'll
ask
do
the city
that for
clerk's
you,
office
but
to
that's
remove
where
it.
it came
Okay,
from.
I just, that's,
It's a public record.
well, it's extremely invasive. In a classroom, you cannot call me during a class. And when I say I'm in a class, they don't care.
I'll ask the city clerk's office to remove your cell phone number.
Yeah.
Do you have another number that you?
I do. I have a landline number. You're welcome to call anytime, day or night.
I'll get that from you.
I may or may not answer it, but
Member Richardson?
Yes, I think we've accomplished a lot tonight, more than I expected. And Eddie, are we allowed to take these placemats home?
Again, you cannot keep the doilies, the placemats of the future land use map. I mean, we can print one for you if you are genuinely interested. But Mr. Brad Parrish, his intention was to have that up there for as an easy reference for you all, so that you don't have to
Okay,
find the.
so we gotta leave them.
Yes, you do have to leave them
it.
tonight, but we can make them for you if you need them.
Okay, any other member having any business